Hare Krishna. Om Ghanashyam Govinda Prabhu Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Samaved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta Ki Jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. So, I think Baba Prabhu he covered till 100. Okay, so this is Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Antya Lila Chapter 2, text 101. One day Bhagavan Acharya invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to dine at his home. Thus, he was preparing rice and various types of vegetables. Okay, so Bhagavan Acharya, we saw in the previous classes, I think yesterday, discussed about how he came with his brother, Gopal Bhattacharya, not to be confused with Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So he comes with his brother Gopal Bhattacharya, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew that Gopal Bhattacharya was not a pure devotee. He was a Vedantist. He was studying Shariraka Bhashya, the commentary written by Shankaracharya in Benares or Kasi. But because of his relationship with Bhagavan Acharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was feigning affection, pleasure rather, being in his association. But then Swarup Damodar pulls him aside and tells him, it's not good for us to be in the association of Gopal Bhattacharya. For which Bhagavan Acharya gives a similar sort of an excuse which our mind always gives. We are devotees, pure devotees. It may happen for others, but not for us. When he gives exactly same excuse to Swarup Damodar Goswami Maharaj, he tells that, yes, that may be true, we won't get affected. But if we keep on hearing it over a period of time, we will lose our attraction for the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, as well as our life also will go gliding down to hell. So he says because of that. So we should never try to test how strong we are. There is already enough challenges in this world. So we should never take chances. When Shastras say Mayavadi Bhasya Shunla Haibe Sarvanash means if somebody hears Mayavada, then over a period of time they will lose the taste, because we have to understand it is a lot of effort for us to practice Krishna consciousness, correct? Every time you go to sleep, you wake up, you forget your name, what your initiated name, what day is today, am I a devotee? It's very easy to forget because we are carrying so many, our conditioning across so many different births. So it is an arduous effort which we all actually put in to practice Krishna consciousness in the process of re-establishing our lost connection with the Supreme Lord. And in the process to also understand about we, Supreme Lord, Ekala Ishwar, Krishna, Arasabhabhritya. Supreme Lord is the only, Krishna is the only Ishwara, Supreme Lord, controller, and we are all simply his servants. Arasabhabhritya, Bhritya means servants. Everyone else, all living entities are his servants. Even with that we have a problem also, correct? Many times I was speaking to one of our leaders yesterday, and I was saying, when you manage anything, wow. When you manage, sometimes little bit of critical thinking is needed to make sure everything goes good. But the problem with that is, If over a period of time you don't, if you open the door, it will go out. I think it's a moth. Coming for Caitanya Katha. So, but if we start to think at one point, coming out of the transcendental platform, you try to make plans, it's very easy to get carried away in that mode of passion and to think we are the controller. And you will make an attempt, but then very soon you will find yourself in that situation. It's very, very easy to forget that Krishna is the controller. I think they're close now. He's settled in his position. He is no more to go out. So, it's very easy for us to forget why we are doing what we are doing. So, it's a lot of effort we actually put to practice Krishna consciousness in re-establishing our identity, re-establishing our lost identity. So, we should never take chances there. Just to see, let's say we burn wood and we somehow are able to produce some fire. And when the fire is actually going, to test the strength of the fire, we should not try to pour water in it. That's not a good proposition. Correct? So we should never put it to test. How much we are progressing, that's why we take guidance from senior Vaishnavas, senior Vaishnavis, from our friends, from even devotees who may be juniors. We take feedback and then we know, okay, we are in the proper position. We should never put our Krishna consciousness at risk. When Lord Shiva, we all know during the Samudra Manthan Lila, when poison comes, Lord Shiva takes it, scoops it up and he drinks. So when he takes the poison, after that only nectar comes and then we know the whole pastime of Mohini Murti. So when Mohini Murti's pastime finished, everyone was talking about Mohini Murti everywhere. Lord Shiva was also hearing. And Lord Shiva develops this desire, I want to take darshan of Mohini Murti. So then he comes to Vishnu along with his wife Parvati. He goes to meet Vishnu. And he says, Hari Bol. And he says to Vishnu, my Lord, I would like to take darshan of Mohini Murti, everyone is talking about. So then Vishnu says, are you sure? He doesn't say, are you sure? But Shastras explain, he just gave a very wry smile to the effect, are you sure? And Prabhupada writes in the purport that Krishna doesn't like us to try out the strength of material energy, to see whether it is something of enjoyment for us. Krishna doesn't like us. Krishna doesn't like us to flirt with Maya. So Prabhupada says we should never be overexcited thinking, oh, I've regained enough strength, so let me go back. And Prabhupada would often give this example of somebody developing some immunity for a disease, but even before they overcome the effect of the disease, they fall into this relapse. So normally when the immunity is actually built, you should be able to fight off the disease, fight off the effect of anything, any ailment. But Prabhupada says it is also possible prematurely when somebody gives up the diet, they gives up the medicine, they can fall back. So we are also in that precarious position. Throughout our life, there is every possibility to go on a relapse very soon. So we have to be very, very careful that we don't take chances, we simply follow the Shastras strictly. So here Swarup Damodara, he is giving that sober instruction to his associate here, in this case Bhagavan Acharya, saying we should never take chances when it comes to hearing from the proper source. We should never think, okay, let me try that. What's the need? We all know Ambarish Maharaj. There is a pastime of Ambarish Maharaj doing his tapasya in Vrindavan. He is happily doing it. And at that point, one day Vishnu thinks, let me test. That's pastime of the Supreme Lord. So he goes to Vrindavan and he tells to Ambarish Maharaj, actually Vishnu goes in the disguise of Indra. And guess who takes the role of Airavat? Garuda. So Vishnu goes as Indra on board Airavat Airlines, and then he goes in front of Ambarish Maharaj and he says, my dear Ambarish, I know how great a devotee you are. By the way, I am Lord Indra. So please ask for whatever boon you like, and I will give. In fact, when you worship Vishnu, it's not easy to please Vishnu. Pleasing Vishnu is it takes a long time. That's why demons always go for Brahma or Shiva. Ashutosh, very pleased and easily displeased, or they go to Brahma. So here, Vishnu, in the form of Indra, he is tempting Ambarish Maharaj, saying, normally it takes such a long time, but here I am, Indra, I can give any boon that you want. Whatever Vishnu gives, I will give you. Ambarish Maharaj looks at him and he says, no thanks. Whatever I want, Vishnu is my Supreme Lord. If he wants to give me, he will give me. If he doesn't give me, that means it's not for my good, I don't want it. He just rejects it straight away. So we can follow, Prabhupada would often say, example of Matpara devotee, Ambarish Maharaj. Every single time you come across in Shastras where Prabhupada explains about Matpara in relationship to the Supreme Lord, you would always quote Ambarish Maharaj, Savai Mana Krishna Padarvande verse. So here Ambarish Maharaj is teaching us a lesson. We should not actually be too eager to test our prowess. Prabhupada says the attitude of a devotee doesn't want to become a hero, but they would like Krishna to be the hero. And Prabhupada gives example of Aghasura pastime. When the Gopas, they were playfully walking into the mouth of Aghasura, at that time, they know something is really wrong here. And they have figured out also that this one doesn't look like yet another python. But still they look at Krishna and they say, anyway, Krishna is there. If some problem, Krishna will kill it. And they just walk. So Prabhupada says, this is the mood of pure devotees, that they don't want to become hero themselves, but they want the Supreme Lord to be the hero. So whenever the question comes to Prabhupada about Prabhupada, my mind is going crazy. I don't know how to control it. How can I control it? Prabhupada says, controlling the mind, that's a joke. We cannot control it. Mind is too strong. But you pray to Krishna, Krishna is very strong. Ask Krishna to control, Krishna will control. So when we pray, that should be the mood, and that's the proper prayer to do. We should never think, Krishna, please give me the power so that I can control my mind. Prabhupada says that's not how it works. We always pray to Krishna for help, and Krishna gives help, even in terms of giving us strength. So here, Swarup Damodar is giving instruction to Bhagavan Acharya that we should never think we are strong enough to withstand the onslaught of Mayavada philosophy. It's much better to stick to what we have. We don't want it. So what's the need? Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj could have, if we are in Ambarish Maharaj's position, what would we think? Actually, I'm a devotee. I know who is the Supreme Lord. Anyway, there is a demigod here. Let me still ask a boon. That's what we'll think. Now, if you look at Dhruva Maharaj, when he goes on the killing spree of killing all the yakshas, ready to wipe them out, when he was about to release Narayana Astra, at that time taking advice of senior Vaishnavas, he stops the attempt. Then Kuvera, being very pleased, he comes to Dhruva Maharaj and he asks, so, my dear child, what boon would you like? Then Dhruva Maharaj actually asks for only one boon. My Lord, please bless me so that I can become a devotee of Supreme Lord. Now he is already a devotee. So Prabhupada says, demigods, they may not be pure devotees, they may be Sakam Bhaktas, but they can bestow, as agent of the Supreme Lord, they can bestow pure devotional service also. So when we go to any demigod, we can always pray for pure devotional service. When we go to Lord Shiva, we can pray for pure devotional service, and Lord Shiva will be very pleased. There are many pastimes like that. One Brahmana, he's a Shiva worshipper, he worships Shiva, and Shiva finally comes in front of him, almost soon, as soon as he started meditating. Then this Brahmana is intelligent and he thinks, I will pray to Shiva this way. Then Shiva asks, what boon would you like? Then he says, my Lord, I know my intelligence is very limited. You give me the boon which you consider very valuable. Very intelligent Brahmana. So then Shiva says, all right, go to Sanatana Goswami. Then he goes to Sanatana Goswami, and you know the pastime. Then he goes to Sanatana Goswami and he tells him, Shiva sends me here. No problem. That's their induction program. What would you like? Then he says, I like the most valuable thing. I heard you have Chintamani stone. He says, yeah, take it from the rubbish bin. So he picks it up and he was walking out with that. He is thinking, intelligent Brahmana, if this is so valuable, why is he putting in rubbish bin? Thinking this way, he thinking this way, he goes back to Sanatana Goswami and he says, this is very valuable, we know, but why is it you have kept it in rubbish bin? So then Sanatana Goswami actually tells him, I will tell you that, first you throw this in Yamuna and come back. Then he goes, throws the Chintamani stone, and then he comes back. And when he comes back, at that time he then initiates him in Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So, when we are already sheltered in Krishna consciousness, when we are already sheltered in Shastras, in the parampara of Brahma, Madhava, Gaudiya Sampradaya, sheltered at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, we don't need to look anything beyond. And we can follow in the footsteps of these great Vaishnavas like Ambarish Maharaj, Swarup Damodar Goswami. Here we see example, Dhruva Maharaj. Even though they have everything at their beck and call. In Ambarish Maharaj's case, he had Indra right in front of him. Of course, he didn't know that it is Vishnu himself. Of course, after that pastime, Vishnu becomes very pleased and then he shows his form. And then he gives some Sudarshan Chakra. That's how Ambarish Maharaj had Sudarshan Chakra at his axis. Later on, when Dhruva Maharaj's pastime happens, so this is the pastime actually, where Vishnu awards him. So, you will see this particular mood that is being taken, and you will see later on in this Antya Lila section only, about how Jagadananda Pandit actually goes and meets Sanatana Goswami. And then when he sees Sanatana Goswami wrapping his head with some Mahaprasad, chadar, that is given by some other Vaishnav, Jagadananda Pandit becomes so upset, he takes a vessel and ready to throw at him. He says, you are a direct disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How can you actually take shelter of someone else? And then Sanatana Goswami closes his eyes and he says, I have heard how dear you are to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have heard about your unflinching devotion to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now in the form of this chastisement, now I feel so blissful. Technically speaking, Jagadananda Pandit, he is very, very young boy compared to Sanatana Goswami. He is like head of all Goswamis. But he is chastising him. So you will see how devotees, they exemplified this exclusive devotion at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's the lesson we can actually learn from Swarup Damodar, his instructions to Bhagavan Acharya. Now let's continue. Chastisement of Junior Haridas. One day Bhagavan Acharya invited, this is Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Antya Lila, chapter 2, text 101. One day Bhagavan Acharya invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to dine at his home. Thus he was preparing rice and various types of vegetables. A devotee named Chota Haridas used to sing for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chota Haridas is a sannyasi. A devotee named Chota Haridas used to sing for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhagavan Acharya called him to his home and spoke as follows. Please go to the sister of Shiki Mahiti. In my name, ask her for a mana of white rice and bring it here. Shiki Mahiti's sister was named Madhavi Devi. She was an elderly lady who always performed austerities. She was very advanced in devotional service. So Shiki Mahiti and his sister Madhavi, they are eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even in Vrajalila also you will find. Here Madhavi Devi is given. Madhavi Devi is Kalakeli actually. She is a personal associate of Srimati Radharani. So here he is actually telling Bhagavan Acharya, he is telling Chota Haridas, please go and beg some rice from Madhavi Devi. Why? Because Bhagavan Acharya wants to cook some nice prasad for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted her as having formerly been an associate of Srimati Radharani. Who? Madhavi Devi. In the entire world, 3.5 people were his intimate devotees. So there are so many associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but 3.5 of them are considered most dear. Swarup Damodar, Ramananda Roy, Shiki Mahiti, and Madhavi. So there are 3 men and a Mataji, but the Mataji is considered Ardhangini, better half of a man. So if you count as men, it's considered half in that context. Does that make sense? So that's why the three were Swarup Damodara Goswami, Ramananda Roy and Sikhi Mahiti, and half a person. When you count a Mataji as a man, it's considered the better half of the man. Even according to Shastras, Srimad Bhagavatam itself says, that's why it's called Ardhangini. Anga is the body, Ardha is half. So in that context, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, 3.5 people are his closest associates, most intimate associates. Swarup Damodara, Ramananda Roy, Sikhi Mahiti, and we have Sikhi Mahiti's sister, which is Madhavi Devi. After begging the rice from her, Junior Haridas brought it to Bhagavan Acharya, who was very pleased to see its quality. In great affection, Bhagavan Acharya cooked varieties of vegetables and other preparations dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He also obtained remnants of food from Lord Jagannatha and digestive aids such as ground ginger and also lime with salt. At noon, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to eat the offerings of Bhagavan Acharya, he first appreciated the fine rice and therefore questioned him, "Where did you get the rice from? Where did you get such fine rice?" the Lord asked. Bhagavan Acharya replied, "I got it by begging from Madhavi Devi." When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked who begged the rice, who had begged the rice and brought it back, Bhagavan Acharya mentioned the name of Junior Haridas. Praising the quality of the rice, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu partook of the prasad. Then after returning to his residence, he gave the following order to Govinda, his personal assistant. Jai. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki Jai. From this day onward, do not allow Chota Haridas to come here. And what was Chota Haridas' fault? He was a sannyasi. He went and begged rice from a Mataji. Even though she is senior or elderly Mataji, still for the ashram that he is in, it's not allowed. And we'll see that discussion now. When Junior Haridas heard that the other senior Haridas is Haridas Thakur. When Junior Haridasa heard that he had been ordered not to approach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very unhappy. No one could understand why he had been ordered not to come. Haridasa fasted continuously for 3 days. Then Swarup Damodar Goswami and other confidential devotees approached Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to inquire from him. What great offense has Junior Haridas committed? Why has he been forbidden to come to your door? He has now been fasting for 3 days. The Lord replied, I cannot tolerate seeing the face of a person who has accepted the renounced order of life, but who still talks intimately with the woman. Prabhu kahe vairagi kare prakriti sambhashana. Prakriti sambhashana means intimately talking with women. There are, Prabhupada actually quotes Veera Raghavacharya, there are 8 different types of illicit sex. Whenever we say 4 regulative principles, Smaranam Kirtanam Keli, Prekshanam Guhya Bhashanam, Sankalpa Adhyavasayascha, Kriya Nivrittirevacha. 8. Thinking about women, talking to women, dallying with women. Keli means jovial talks. Same principle, all of this holds true for Matajis also in relation to Prabhus. Whatever that Shastras actually say in relation to one applies equally to the other. But convention they follow, sometimes you will see. It will be given, Prabhupada says, woman is Maya for men and man is Maya for women. Okay, so all of this applies equally for a chaste woman also. How to be chaste. Because here as it says, like, it takes 2 hands to clap, so to speak. So whatever that applies for brahmachari applies equally for Matajis also. So smaranam, kirtanam, smaranam even thinking about women or thinking about the opposite sex. Smaranam, kirtanam, keli, prekshanam, guhya bhashanam, to make an endeavor to go and talk to the other person. to talk to the member of the opposite sex, to resolve, to have intimate association, sexual intercourse, to make an attempt and then actually having the personal sangha. All of this comes under illicit sex only. So Prabhupada actually quotes this, and you'll see that in Bhagavatam Prabhupada quotes this. But then, here is the point. But for sannyasis, you may think it looks like very innocent. Haridas Thakur fasted for, where is it? I cannot tolerate seeing the face of a person who has accepted the renounced order of life, but still talks intimately with the woman. Now, if you look at it, you can easily justify. First of all, he did only for service. Correct? And he also didn't go by himself. Bhagavan Acharya asked him, so he goes. And that too, he is going just for begging. And the Mataji in question is very, very elderly. Still, for somebody in renounced order, rules are very strict. Now, when we come across some sections like this, have you gotten this experience, even now maybe, or even when we come to Krishna consciousness? Have you come across this feeling that these rules are quite strict and rigid, especially in regard to fasting, Ekadashi? Here is one instance, if you look at it, even with our materialistic mind, objectively, it looks like, what's wrong? He didn't do anything. There's no ulterior motive that he had. All he did was, he just fulfilled the order of the authority. So we can come up with the n number of excuses that, he didn't have any ill intention. The Mataji in question is grandmotherly, not even motherly, so on and so forth. We can come up with all that. But Shastras, when we take initiation from our spiritual master, initiation means the process where obviously we become the servant of the Supreme Lord, we get connected to the parampara officially, we accept our Guru as our father, eternal father. And initiation also means we accept Shastras as our mother. Now, just like how a mother would show love to a little child by providing whatever the child asks sometimes, but sometimes by refusing to fulfill the desire of the child, because the mother knows deep in the core of her heart what is good and what is bad for the child. And in those circumstances, when the mother doesn't fulfill, the child gets upset with the mother. She is too strict with me. Now, why is the mother strict with the child? She likes to be so? No. Because she knows if she gives in what the child asks, it will eventually bring in doom for the child. So the mother is strictly drawing the line, saying, no, this is not possible. Shastras are also our mother. In spirituality, when we take initiation, when we take Diksha means, Prabhupada explains, this is the instruction Prabhupada gives to his disciples in the very first initiation ceremony of ISKCON. You can read Prabhupada Lila. You will see beautiful instructions Prabhupada gives. And you have to understand, Prabhupada is speaking to people, there is not many books printed yet. They are very, very new. But Prabhupada is still telling them in a way that they can actually relate. And you will understand why Prabhupada is Jagat Guru. How expertly Prabhupada is able to impart the most important knowledge in a way which somebody who has no idea about Vedic culture can easily understand, imbibe, get convinced and surrender also. Okay, so that's the beauty of Prabhupada's instructions. So, Shastras are the mother. Now the child, just like most of the times the child has appreciation for the mother, but sometimes the child has no reason. Mother also may not actually explain fully. Why? Because the child may not fully understand. She may try to explain, but then it depends on the maturity. Some things you can explain, some things you cannot. It's very difficult. Prabhupada would often give example. Sometimes the mother may tell the child, if you don't take this medicine or if you don't take this food, a big demon is going to come and catch you. The intention of the mother is not to cheat the child. The intention of the mother is to do something good to the child. So sometimes the reason may be obvious why the mother is saying no. Sometimes it may not be. So this is one of those instances where we may not still, mother is our mother, mother is always our ultimate well-wisher, we still bow down and we still follow. Spiritual mother, Shastras. That is why mother is strict. Point number 1. Number 2, Krishna says about Maya, Devi Yesha Gunamayi, Mama Maya Duradhyaya. Because the enemy in question here is very strong. Devi Yesha Gunamayi means very difficult to overcome. So to the extent the enemy is bigger, to that extent, it is much more difficult for us to counter that enemy. So instruction will be even more strong, because through following this instruction only we can counteract the effect of the enemy. So more stronger the enemy is, more stronger the instruction also will be. Prabhupada would say, just like how the virya of the disease is more, the intensity or the effect, or rather the virya of the medicine also should be equally powerful. Now because the enemy in question, which is Maya, is more strong, the instructions also are quite rigid. They are strong. So but what's needed is we need to take shelter, we need to surrender to the Supreme Lord, we need to surrender to Guru, we need to surrender to these instructions, which is our mother. If we do that, just like how the mother will actually protect her child, similarly, Shastras will also protect. Shastras themselves say, make the promise, Dharma rakshati rakshata. If we protect Dharma, which means follow the instructions, if we protect Dharma, Dharma will in turn protect us. Dharma rakshati rakshata. Even a crude example, if you protect a little plant and let it grow to become a big tree, big vriksha, we protect the plant initially, but later on when the plant grows, it will in turn protect us from the onslaught of rain, sun, wind, everything, cold, everything. Prabhupada says, trees, they have this unique ability. If you go under a tree in summer, you will get cooling shade. But if you go under a tree in winter, you will feel warmth. Prabhupada says, Goswamis know about it, that's why they were living only under the trees. Prabhupada says in one morning walk actually. Okay, so Dharma rakshati rakshata. We have to protect the Dharma. Protecting means following it. If we follow that, then it becomes very easy. Shastra is our mother, and because the enemy is very, very powerful, Shastras are also more strong. Don't go there. Don't look at that side. You know this Greek stories about Medusa. Anybody who looks at Medusa gets frozen. Don't look. Strong instruction only. Okay. Parsi still works around that. Looks at the reflection and then he kills. Like that. Shastras are very, very strong because the enemy is invisible. So Shastras instructions, effect of Shastra's instruction also may not be tangible straight away, but we still have to follow. That's why it starts with Adav Shraddha. Faith has to be there. So here, what Shastric injunction did Chota Haridas breach? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will continue. So strongly do the senses adhere to the objects of their enjoyment that indeed a wooden statue of a woman attracts the mind of even a great saintly person. Matra swastra duhitra va na va vikta no shano bhavet na va vikta shano bhavet balavan indriya gramo vidvamsham api karshati. This is one should not sit closely with one's mother, sister or daughter. Interestingly, the alphabetical order of the starting letter of Matra, Swastra, Duhitra, MSD, translates exactly as mother, sister and daughter. Matra for mother, M. Swastra for sister, S. Duhitra for daughter, D. MSD. Matra, Swastra, Duhitrava. Na avavikta shano bhavet. One should never sit in a secluded place with one's mother, sister or daughter. Why? The next two lines explain why. Balavan indriya gramo. The senses are so strong. Vidvamsham api karshati. It is so strong that it can overwhelm the willpower, determination of even vidvams. Vidvan means one who is very, very strong, very elevated, most educated, most realized. It can still overcome. Vidvamsam api karshati. So Shastras say. Now where does this instruction come? This one comes from, Prabhupada says, Manu Samhita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam 9th canto, you will come across the story of Yayati Maharaj and Damayanti. Damayanti is daughter of Shukracharya. Yayati says this, after he enjoys sexual life for thousands of years, still he feels unsatisfied. So then, after going through that, he then feels so dejected because he is pursuing sexual pleasure, sensual pleasure, but he is not feeling satisfied. So at some point he realizes, what's the whole point in this? I'm just renouncing it. He gives it up, and then there is a series of instructions which he gives to his wife, narrating an allegory. So this instruction he tells there. I was pursuing this sensual pleasure for so many years, still what am I gaining? So from now on, I'm going to give up this and I will take shelter of the Supreme Lord. And then he turns towards, as I said, Bhagavatam, Mathurena Samapayat. It will always be happy ending in everything. So here, Yayati Maharaj also takes the shelter of the Supreme Lord. Him, Damayanti, everyone goes back to God after that. Okay, so you will come across. So, but this instruction he quotes from Manu Samhita. That comes even before. In Manu Samhita, you will see, Prabhupada says Manu Samhita is the law of mankind. That's why it's written by Manu. So, many instructions in the Shastras, you will see they are repeated from Manu. And many instructions you can't really fully make out. Why is it there like that? Like here it's given, Matra Swasra Duhitrava. And it says one should never sit alone. But since as a baby we are always with our mother. We may think like that. Yes. But Prabhupada says, the feeling, attraction for the opposite sex is there inside everyone, but in the child's body it's not manifest yet. But the child, when they actually grow beyond a certain time, the child's mind doesn't think like a mind anymore. The child's body doesn't feel like the body of a child anymore. So Shastra is giving this. Matra, Swasra, Duhitrava. Same is with being with one's sister as well as with one's daughter. In other words, except with one's wife, one can never be in a secluded place with anyone else. That's what it means. Matravat Paradareshu. So here mother refers to everyone else, all other women. This is also Shastric injunction. One should look at everyone as one's mother. Matravat Paradareshu, except one's wife. Okay, so mother, sister or daughter. What about sister? Same. What about daughter? Shastra says same. Now some things we may be able to appreciate, but some it's difficult to comprehend. That's why it's one of those instructions that may look very harsh. What is this? But Shastras are full of such injunctions. The whole idea of anywhere, if you take any building, they'll have fire exit. They'll even do fire drill, for example. What happens in the eventuality? Or in an unlikely scenario. Every time you board a flight, they always say, in an unlikely scenario of, some issue, when the flight is in midair, this is the path you have to follow, this is the exit route, everything they say. Whole idea of Shastras is prevention. Anything Vedic, if you see, it's preventive. Prabhupada says Ayurveda, it's a preventive medicine. It's not a curative medicine, which means you can take it before you get a disease. Prabhupada says, but once you get a disease, Prabhupada says, go to allopathy if you want to get cured. But Ayurveda is a whole package, holistic package. How you sleep, what kind of water do you drink, how much liter water you drink, how are you maintaining your consciousness, what's your bhakti like, everything. So Vedic lifestyle is a preventive lifestyle. You don't even look that side. Remember, when Shiva goes and asks Vishnu, can I take darshan of Mohini Murti? Vishnu is like, are you sure? Because Vishnu doesn't like preventive only. His advice is, don't even try looking at Maya, just avoid Maya. You just focus on devotional service. Swarup Damodar's instruction to Bhagavan Acharya, same. Why should I read Shariraka Bhashya? Even though I may be strong, I don't need it. Preventive. So Shastras is for not even making us go through that experience to learn. Then what's the whole point? If experience is the best teacher. Because fools learn no other way. Shastras can do something better. Prabhupada would say, learning from one's mistakes is good, but learning from others' mistakes is wise. It's better. Why do I have to go through? Then what's the whole point in studying history if I have to go through the same thing? We'll keep on reinventing the wheel over and over again. We cannot move from point A to B. So Shastras always give instructions so as to make our journey towards Krishna as pain-free as possible. Ideally, it's possible to have a painless experience. So this whole journey is about that. But in order to do that, some instructions, it's very easy for us to embrace. Eat prasad. I love that instruction, Prabhu. Most auspicious time. What's the fast breaking time, Prabhu? That's the most auspicious time. Some instructions we love. Most of the instructions are difficult. But Manu Samhita is full of such instructions. If you read pastime of Yamunacharya, he is one of the prominent gurus of Sri Sampradaya, especially in Rangashetra, Srirangam. Yamunacharya is let me say the other way around. Ramanujacharya's guru is Mahapurna. You will come across Purna. Many. There is Sri Shaila Purna, Mahapurna, Goshti Purna, Kanchi Purna also. Ramanujacharya's guru is Mahapurna. Mahapurna's guru is Yamunacharya. You will come across this famous verse. There are a couple of verses actually you will see being quoted by Prabhupada. Yaddavadi mamacheta Krishna padaravinde navanama rasadamni udyatam antumasid taddavadi batanari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukha vikara sustu nistivanam cha. Ever since I have taken to the lotus, worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, navanava rasadamni udyatam antumasid. I am feeling more and more devotional mellow that's arising in our heart like the early morning sun. Taddavadi Bhatanari Sangame Sparyamane. However, before taking shelter of Krishna, if I look back at my life, I was running after sexual pleasure here, there. In comparison to the pleasure that I get now, if that thought about a past life comes, and it does come, Prabhupada says, it's one of the designs of Maya. Maya will always come and flash memories from past life. Past life means before KC, before coming to Krishna consciousness. But Ramanacharya says, ever since I have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Supreme Lord, more and more newer mellows is actually coming, flooding my heart, and I'm feeling so blissful. And in comparison to that, if by some chance any of the past memories come, my lips curl in distaste, and I spit at the thought. He says like that. This is Yamunacharya. So, Yamunacharya, when he was a little boy, his grandfather, he comes from a great lineage also. His grandfather is Nadamuni. Nadamuni, he was the one who started to sing the pasurams or the poems that's written in glorification of Vishnu, written by Alvars, Nammalvar in particular. So he's a great musician, saintly musician. He was a sannyasi, guru. He also presided over the assembly where Kamba Ramayanam was sung for the first time. So you will see that mandapa if you go to Srirangam even now. So, Yamunacharya, when he was a little boy, he studies in the school of a teacher by name Bhashyacharya. And he is in the kingdom of Pandyas, Madurai, or southern Mathura it's called. That's the capital city. So he is studying. So one day as he was there in his Gurukul and Bhashyacharya has gone out, he gets two guests who come, who introduces themselves as the disciples of great Kolahala. Now Kolahala was also a teacher, a guru in the Pandya kingdom. He was so powerful, like a Digvijay Pandit. He has defeated everyone in argument. He was so popular, he was so powerful that the king had made a decree, had made a law. Whoever who was defeated by Kolahala, they have to pay him annual tax every year for rest of their lives. So everyone would shudder to be in his presence. It so happened Bhashyacharya, who is Yamunacharya was just like a 12-year-old boy. His guru has defaulted. paying the tax for that year. So Kolahala had sent his disciples asking him when he's going to pay. So when they start to speak about Bhashyacharya in a derogatory sense, Yamunacharya gets very upset. Normally he's a very humble boy, but when his guru's reputation is at stake, he then blasts back at those disciples. What kind of a guru do you have who doesn't even teach the basic sense of humility to his students? So your guru must be very bad. So he blasts back. So the disciples, they say like, how dare you talk like that? Do you know the position of our guru? Kolahala. Then he says, Bhashyacharya is such an elevated Vaishnav. He doesn't need to waste his time to come and debate with your guru. Tell your guru, I will come for debate. And tell your guru, we will never pay tax. I will defeat your guru. So then they go back to Kolahala. And when the king comes to know about it, then he says, all right, it looks like somebody wants to challenge. Let him come. So the disciples come back to Yamunacharya, who is still a young boy. And he says, okay, come for debate on such and such date. He says, I will come only if you send me a royal palanquin. And whatever that comes with that. Send me guards, send me this, that and everything. Then only I'll come. So he needs to invite me. If the king wants me to come and decorate his assembly, then he needs to give me respect that's befitting my position. He says like that. He goes to the king and king also says like, all right. Then he sends palanquin along with the guards. So they bring him in all royalty, in all royal opulence. So then he comes and he puts forth 3 propositions to Kolahala. And he tells to Kolahala, I'm going to put forth 3 propositions. See if you can refute it. So first proposition he puts to Kolahala is, your mother is not barren. Somebody is called barren if they haven't given birth to a child. So the proposition he puts forth to him is, your mother is not barren. Refute this. Refute means he has to argue against it. Which means Kolahala had to argue that his mother is barren. How can it be? So, if his mother is barren, then Kolahala wouldn't be there in the first place. But that's the first proposition he puts. Then Kolahala gets confused and he says, my mother is not barren, I am supposed to refute it. How is it possible? And then Yamunacharya tells him, all right, if you are confused with one, take my second proposition. And he says, this king, Pandya king, is a very righteous king who never goes away from the path of virtue. Such a person only is called righteous. So he says, this great Pandya king is a very righteous person. Refute it. Refute it means he's supposed to argue against it. How can you do it? Then Kolahala gets even more confused. And then he gives a knockout punch. Third one, he says, all right, if you find the first 2 propositions very hard to refute, then try this third one. And he says, the queen of this great Pandya king, she is the most chaste lady, like Savitri. Refute it. Then Kolahala thinks, you impudent boy, how can I refute? How can I argue that the queen is not chaste? How can I refute it? So then Yamunacharya says, then you lose the debate. Then Kolahala says, no, that's not enough. You have actually almost defamed the king, queen, and my mother. Unless you yourself refute, you will be put into jail and you will be given the most severe punishment for your impudence. So then Yamunacharya says, oh, refuting this is very easy. Then he quotes Manu Samhita. That's the verse in question here. If you are wondering, why are we discussing this pastime? Then he quotes Manu Samhita and he says, according to Manu Samhita, a woman is considered to be barren even if she has given birth to only one child or one child. In other words, someone is considered not barren only if they give birth to more than one child. Generally, the word barren is used in the context of if somebody has given birth to one, then they are not considered to be barren anymore. But he quotes Manu Samhita saying, according to Manu Samhita, if somebody has given birth to just one child, which is true in your case, you are the only son of your mother, they are still considered barren. Then Kolahala refers to Manu Samhita. Yeah, true. Ting. Then he says, second one. The king is the most righteous person. According to Manu Samhita, he quotes again that the king will always take 1/6 of all the pious credit of all the prajas. So whatever activity that people do, whatever punya, devotional credit, whatever they accrue, king will take 1/6 of it. He will take 1/6 of that share automatically. However, terms and conditions apply. It doesn't go only for credit, it also goes for sins. Whatever sins people commit, king will take 1/6 of it as well. And then he glorifies the king. Even though this king is so righteous, still if you look at his karma balance, it will always have some sins, not because he personally accrued it, but because he inherited it from the prajas. So according to Manu Samhita, the king cannot be righteous. Because of Kali Yuga, people will always do sins, so king will always be tinged also with that contamination. So he refutes the second argument. Then he says, third argument, then he says a king is considered to be representative of 8 demigods. Then he says Indra, Surya, Chandra, Agni, Vayu, Kuvera, Varuna, Yama. So 8 principal demigods. So a king is considered to be the representation of these 8 demigods. So the queen, even though she is married to the king, in fact she is married to 8 different demigods. So he says, according to Manu Samhita, so he says the queen is not chaste. And he wins over that, and because of that he gets this title Halavandar. Halavandar means one who has conquered Kolahala, or one who has conquered, one who came and he conquered the debate. And then before this whole debate, the queen actually tells to the king, when I look at this boy, I think he will put an end to the pride of Kolahala. And she says, I will even back my words with a wager. If today he doesn't succeed in the debate, I will become the maidservant of your servant. She puts that to the king. And the king says, fair enough, I will match your wager. And he says, if this boy defeats Kolahala today, I will give him half my kingdom. And because he defeated, he gets half the kingdom. That's why Yamunacharya's first half of his life, he was a king, actually, Pandya king. He was ruling over Pandya kingdom, half of that. But then there is a pastime that comes later, how he gives that up and then again goes and becomes the Acharya of Srirangam, like that. So Manu Samhita, if you see, understanding this will be confusing. Like for Kolahala, my mother is barren, how can she be barren? So some instructions, it's very easy to accept it directly, but some, it will be like this only. And Shastric injunctions are like that. That's why this famous verse is there in Mahabharata. Tarko pratistha shrutayo vibhinnam, nasham rishirapya matamna binnam, dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam, mahajano ena gata sapanta. The instructions of the Shastra, already they are strict, but they can be ambiguous also. In fact, in some places it may look like contradictory also. Have you come across instructions that sounds contradictory? They do. But because of this nature of these Shastric injunctions, just opening the book and reading alone is not good enough because it will lead to confusion, Mahabharata says. So what should one do? The conclusion of the sum total of all these instructions, they are realized, and that realized knowledge, Vijnana, is in the heart of great devotees. Dharmasya tattvam. Tattvam means the truth of all dharma. Nihitam guhayam. Guhayam means they are sitting in the confidential part of the heart, which means deep in the core of the heart of the pure devotees. The conclusion of the Shastras are sitting. So, Mahajanayana Gata Sapanta. So, the only safe way is to follow in the footsteps of Mahajanas. Why? Because the truth of the essence of all these instructions is in their heart. They follow that path, and simply if we follow, once they asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, are you perfect? Prabhupada very humbly said, I am not perfect, but my Gurudev is perfect. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj is perfect. I am following him, his footstep. That is my perfection. And whoever follows me, they will also be perfect. Okay, so this is Prabhupada's humble mood. So when we follow Prabhupada, that's why we cannot quote any Shastra. Everything is true. But because of this nature of the Shastras, which is quite complicated, here it's given, Matra Swastra Duhitrava. What am I supposed to do? Is everyone supposed to become a sannyasi? That's what we may think. But actually, no. There is Dharma for everyone. Here, the person in question, the devotee in question is Chota Haridas, and Chota Haridas is a sannyasi. Now, in Krishna consciousness, we touched on this point before. We should never take all or nothing approach. Sometimes we think, anyway, I'm not chanting 16 rounds. What's the point in chanting one round? Anyway, I cannot do Nirjala Ekadasi. What's the point in even following Ekadasi? You understand where it's going? So mind always says that, anyway, you missed one program, missed the other program also. Anyway, you can't be the best devotee. Why even try? Mind gives us so many. So we should never take all or nothing approach. We should understand progress we actually make. When we do what we can, Krishna will do what we can't. So little, I can't chant 16, okay, at least chant 1. Chant half. Chant at least one mantra. Do something, So generally we say, however, there are some aspects of our life where if you do, you either do it or you don't do it at all. All or nothing approach. Taking sannyas. You take sannyas only if you are capable of doing, otherwise don't do it. This is one of those instructions where you have to take all or nothing approach. Either you do it or you don't do it. Prabhupada says, opening temple, new temple, you think 200 times. Because if you open a temple and you start worshipping a vigraha, worship has to go on perpetually. So Prabhupada says, before you start, you think 200 times. Can I? Can't I? Can I? Can't I? Sleep on it. Again, can I? Can't I? Can we? Can't we? After giving all of that due consideration, you do. Otherwise, don't do. There's already so many temples, just worship. So some instructions, Shastras say, you should go for all or nothing approach. Sannyas ashram is like that. If somebody is a sannyasi, before you take sannyas, you think about it. Can you do it? But once you go in, you have to follow it. It's all or nothing. This particular dharma. Strict. So one has to follow. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu, through this one single pastime, you will see, he gives so many lessons. In fact, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, towards the end of this chapter, will summarize all the lessons. And he'll say, there are 5 to 7 lessons, but he will highlight on 5 lessons. One of that is, how sincere and strict one must be when it comes to practicing devotional service, and how one should not be loose when it comes to associating with the opposite sex. Okay, and he'll elaborate on that. Plus, he'll talk about Tirtha Mahima, so on and so forth. We'll read them later. I'll stop here. We'll continue on this pastime tomorrow. He had one children. He had a child. So Govinda Ghosh is an Agradvipa. You know that Haritaki pastime. Considered to be part of Gaura Mandal, but not really Navadvip, not inside Navadvip. It's not one of the 9 islands. Dvipa is island. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu, when he actually takes him as a traveling servant, you know this famous pastime where he asks one day to Govinda Ghosh, please go and get me some haritaki because I had some indigestion today. So Govinda Ghosh goes to the nearby village, begs for some haritaki and he brings. Govinda Ghosh offers some to Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Next day when Caitanya Mahaprabhu asks, I need haritaki again, Govinda Ghosh immediately pulls out from his bum bag. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu says, yesterday it took so long, today you are giving me immediately. Why? Then he said, my lord, yesterday I went begged and I kept something to be used next day. Till that point, Govinda Ghosh was a brahmachari. Caitanya Mahaprabhu says, you have accumulating tendency, you are a grahastha. Haritaki, little bit saved, he makes him. Because you have accumulating tendency, you stay here and you worship Gopinathji, marry and settle here. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaves him and he just continues on his tour. You know, you put yourself in that position. I saved something and that too for my spiritual master. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, no, strict. So that is Govinda Ghosh. So Govinda Ghosh stays there, then he marries and he has a child, and the child passes away. That time only Govinda Ghosh sits and prays he stops worship. Then Gopinathji comes and he asks, Govinda, Govinda, like that. The deity comes and he pulls. Then Govinda Ghosh looks at him and he says, why are you not feeding me? Then he says, what's the point? I lost association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He told me to follow Grahastha ashram and I'm following. Now my son is also gone, wife is also gone. What's the point? If I die, who's there to actually even burn my body? Then Gopinathji tells him, you are stupid. Then Govinda Ghosh looks at him, stupid? Why do you call me stupid? Then Gopinathji tells him, just because one of your sons is dead, you are now starving and killing the other son. He says himself, I'm your other son. Then Govinda Ghosh asks Gopinathji, you are my son. If I die, will you cremate me? Will you do the Shraddha ceremony for me? Like that he asks Gopinathji. He says, of course I'll do. Then immediately he wipes out his tears, starts to do. Till date, if you go to Agradvip, every year on the disappearance day of Govinda Ghosh, Gopinathji goes on a boat. And there you will see, during Tarpan, they actually tie grass, Dhruva grass, or even Kusha grass rather. They tie that in Gopinath. He wears white clothes. And then he does that. And then after that, he does feast on behalf of his father. So that's festival sponsor Gopinathji himself. That's Govinda Ghosh. Okay, so he was a Grahastha, but on the instruction. So that was the pastime. Yeah.
Question I was coming to is, he's a great devotee, also one of the associates, close associates, I think 82nd or something.
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya.
Mm.
So why is he actually wondering about this bigger for the devotees? How is it actually?
Devotees act in a way to increase the sweetness of Lord's Lila. When we do something and when the devotees do something, they are for two different reasons. We do everything because in our contaminated consciousness, we are still given credit that we are counted as devotees, we are still practicing, beginning level. But when we do our bhakti that is tinged with selfish desires, tinged with jnana. We are not able to put it fully. We still have our own concoction about how we want to practice bhakti, so on and so forth. But pure devotees, when they come, the only purpose why they come is just simply to increase sweetness of the Lord. That's all. So in this particular pastime, if Govinda Ghosh hasn't acted that way, we wouldn't know about how Gopinathji will deal with his devotees. We wouldn't know. There is no clue. If their pastime is so intimate, which is always the case in Golok Vrindavan, the whole point of them coming here, why is Krishna coming here? To do a teaser, trailer. Hey, look how I am enjoying with the devotees. This is exactly what is awaiting you. The whole purpose of why pure devotees accompany the Supreme Lord is to demonstrate the Golok Vrindavan lifestyle. This is the sweet dealings between Krishna. Like we saw when Gopala Bhattacharya, Bhagavanacharya's brother, when he comes, it's given Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu feigned pressure. You know what feigning means? Pretending. Sometimes you go to some shop, some bank, sometime they'll smile. Hi, how can I help you today? As if you are the most important person, but you are not the most important person for them. Won't be long, won't be a moment, you'll hear all of that. But the point is, it's a plastic smile only. Everyone knows. The person who is doing it, they know. And the person who is receiving that reception, they also know. Okay, feigned. This is feigned. Now here it's given Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he feigned pleasure. He is Supreme Lord. Whatever he speaks is absolute truth. Still, he know he is my devotee. Bhagavan is my devotee, but his brother is not. Simply, if I give him a cold shoulder, give the brother a cold shoulder, that will hurt my devotee. simply for that obligation. Now you may think obligation is only for humans. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Supreme Lord, he is also acting that way. Okay, so Supreme Lord is very personal. Deity is very personal. I remember speaking to a devotee once about, asking him about, what should be the consciousness when we worship the deity. And he said, perfection of deity worship is when you come to this unflinching devotional state where you know this is a person. I'm dealing with Krishna. He has his likes, dislikes. He is a personality. So he says that is one of the KPI, how you can measure how you are progressing. Are you able to serve Gopinath like that, in that level of consciousness? So here we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also has his likes and dislikes. Spiritual master, they also have their likes and dislikes. Vaishnavas, likes and dislikes. Everyone has emotions. But the purpose why pure devotees come down here is to act in such a way so that, or is to demonstrate that glorious qualities of Krishna. That's the reason. It's not like Govinda Ghosh didn't know. He knew it. And you'll come across many instances like this. You'll see Devaki sitting and crying. Being the mother of the Supreme Lord, still she cries. Oh, I lost my 6 sons. Doesn't she know that you are not the body or the soul? Of course. They are all spiritual personalities. Still, why they do? Pastime. Arjuna, after hearing entire Gita, he still sits and cries when Abhimanyu dies. They ask that to Prabhupada, actually. Prabhupada, Arjuna heard whole Bhagavad Gita. Yes. Arjuna realized knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says yes. But then why? Doesn't Arjuna know that he is not the body, you are not the body, you are the soul? Why is he crying when Abhimanyu dies? So for that, Yudhishthira Maharaj cries. After the war finishes, everyone dies. Yudhishthira Maharaj is Yamaraj himself, or son of Yamaraj. You will come across Vidura expressing regret. So their level of consciousness is different, but to teach us, Acharya means one who teaches us by example. So Prabhupada says, coming to Arjuna, Vaishnavas know that you are not the body, you are the soul. But having affection to one's son is natural. In Govinda Ghosh's case also like that. How rude and how cold will it be if somebody says, by the way, my son is dead. He is not the body. Is that acceptable? I remember one devotee said, Prabhu, whenever I do any service for Gopinath, I feel after doing that service, I'll feel very happy. Whenever I give any donation to Gopinath, I feel, or for the service of Gopinath, I feel, wow, I'm giving this, so after giving this, I'll be happy. So my whole motive is because of my happiness only. So how can I come out of this? I said, Prabhu, let's just follow your thought process. How do you want to feel? I did devotional service to Krishna today. Or I gave some money to Krishna today. Is that how you want to feel? What do you want to feel? It's natural, correct? You serve Krishna. Krishna is happy, so naturally you will be happy. So be happy. Why do we have to complicate things? Same way, Prabhupada says he's a Vaishnava. Naturally one has affection for a son. When the son dies, that's there. But Prabhupada also adds, there is a difference between Arjuna crying there and there is a difference between Dronacharya crying for his son. As soon as Ashwatthama is dead, he gives up everything and he sits. What's the point? When he heard that's a lie actually. But he gives up everything. He gives up his duty. He just sits there. It's like, what's the point? I'm out of here. He just sits and gives up. Arjuna is not like that, Prabhupada says. So it's natural for somebody to feel that affection. But Vaishnavas also know how to bounce back, but they don't let anything to come between them and their service. So that's the point we need to understand. Govinda Ghosh also same thing. Absolutely, they know that. How we see the deities and how they see, two different things. You have to understand, when somebody is actually speaking to the Lord like that, oh, you are calling yourself to be my son. Will you actually cremate me? Like same thing we see Sanatana Goswami. His body is like, the pus and everything is oozing out. Now we know this body is useless. Now it may even look like, why is he attaching so much importance to his body? Cremation. Why is he so worried about like that? But that's part of the Lila. That's the reciprocation he wants. And even in Sakshi Gopal's pastime, we see young Brahmana is going to Supreme Lord and he says, my Lord, if you know something, if you know a truth and you don't speak out, such people will incur some sins, some karmic reactions. Like that he tells to Supreme Lord. That's just part of the pastime. But that's what adds the sweetness. Now when we come across that, we think, wow, we have heard about Supreme Lord becoming once a son, once a father and everything. Here, exactly that's what it is. Like, in real terms, in literal terms basically. So that level of relationship is possible to have. Okay, we'll stop there. Hare Krishna. Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai, Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath's devotees ki jai, devotees in Mayapur TV, YouTube and Facebook ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.